Hello, friends. Welcome to our first test podcast with me today, Jessica Ramirez, a journalist, and my fellow co-podcaster, Martin Gore, a military expert on our channel. Today, we're going to discuss one of our recent videos about the Javelin missile. If you like this format, please let us know in the comments. Your opinion is very important to us. All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on something pretty fascinating. Have you ever imagined being a Russian tank commander, rolling into Ukraine back in 2022,
Oh, yeah.
feeling pretty confident, right? You've got the numbers, the armor.
All 9 yards.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards, and then bam, out of nowhere,
Gone.
you're taken out by something you didn't even see coming.
Yeah, from miles away.
That's the reality that the Javelin missile has kind of created on the modern battlefield.
That's right.
And that's what we're going to dive deep into today. We're going to be looking at all kinds of stuff, battlefield reports, firsthand accounts from Ukrainian soldiers, all sorts of really interesting material.
It's amazing, this weapon that might have been considered niche before this conflict has really become a symbol of resistance. And we're not just talking about memes and headlines.
No.
The Javelin has really changed things for real on the ground.
Absolutely. So let's set the scene a little bit. It's early 2022.
Okay.
And we've got these massive Russian armored columns pushing into Ukraine.
Yeah, a serious threat.
A very serious threat. The U.S. decides to step in and sends over 5,000 Javelin missiles to try to help even the odds a little bit.
Right, yeah.
But these aren't your grandfather's missiles. We're talking about a system that reportedly boasts a 94% hit rate in controlled tests.
Yeah, and the early reports from the battlefield
were
amazing. Almost 95% of the Javelins fired actually hit their target.
That's incredible.
In those early days.
Yeah.
That's a testament to both the technology and the skill of the Ukrainian soldiers.
Absolutely. And you know what? Speaking of those soldiers,
Yeah.
there are some incredible stories coming out of the front lines. There's this Ukrainian paratrooper who single-handedly destroyed 7 armored vehicles,
Wow.
including tanks, in one engagement.
That's amazing.
Using a Javelin.
Yeah.
This guy wins the Hero of Ukraine award for this.
Yeah.
What do you think that says about the psychological impact this weapon is having?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, the Javelin can really empower a defender. The range of this weapon, we're talking up to 3 miles, depending on the version. This allows the Ukrainians to hit and run, essentially picking off targets from a distance that Russian tanks can't even respond to.
Oh, yeah.
And that could be really demoralizing.
You're expecting to just roll in, and that's not what's happening.
Right. You expect to dominate with brute force, and it's just not working.
Yeah. And it's not just the range. I mean, we've heard accounts from Ukrainian soldiers who talk about the Javelin's ease of use.
Oh, yeah. It's very versatile.
It's versatility. They can fire it from pretty much any position.
Standing, lying down.
Yeah.
Even from inside a building.
Can you imagine being on the receiving end of that?
No.
You're being hit by this incredibly powerful weapon.
You have no idea where it's coming from.
You have no idea where it's coming from. It really flips the script on traditional armored warfare.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think about it.
Yeah.
Small mobile units armed with javelins can disrupt entire armored columns.
Yeah.
They're exploiting the weaknesses of a force that's relying on these large, slow-moving vehicles.
So this is a key factor in what they call maneuver defense, right?
Absolutely. Maneuver defense is all about using agility and speed to disrupt a larger enemy. And the Javelin is the perfect tool for that. You can dictate the terms of engagement.
Yeah.
You choose when and where to strike.
Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing a little bit. What makes this weapon so formidable besides the range and the mobility that we've talked about?
Well, it's surprisingly lightweight. I mean, the whole system, missile and launcher combined, weighs a little over 50 pounds.
Oh, that's nothing.
It's easy to carry and maneuver.
Yeah.
Especially in that kind of terrain in Ukraine.
Especially when you consider that it can destroy Russia's most advanced tanks.
Exactly, like the T-90M.
Which cost millions of dollars.
Millions.
And they're being taken out by a missile that costs a fraction of that.
Right. So there's this really interesting question about cost effectiveness in modern warfare.
Yeah.
The price tag of a Javelin missile might seem high at first, but when you consider the value of the targets that it can destroy, the strategic advantage it provides, and the potential lives that it can save the equation, changes dramatically.
And it's not just tanks either. There are reports of Ukrainian forces using javelins to shoot down Russian helicopters.
That's right.
They-
It's not the primary function of the weapon, but it speaks to the Javelin's adaptability
Yeah.
and the ingenuity of the Ukrainians.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even more amazing that they've been able to do this with their own Stugna missile system,
Oh, wow.
which is a similar anti-tank weapon developed in Ukraine.
So they're kind of rewriting the rules of engagement as this conflict goes on.
They are.
But Russia isn't just sitting back and taking this. They've tried to come up with some countermeasures, right?
Of course. In the early days of the invasion, we saw those images of Russian tanks with those makeshift metal cages
Oh, yeah?
welded on top, almost like something out of Mad Max.
Yeah.
They were trying to deflect the Javelin missiles.
But it didn't really work, did it?
Not really. I mean, it might offer some limited protection against some types of attacks,
Yeah.
but they're largely ineffective against the Javelin's top attack profile.
Now, for our listener out there, what does that mean, top attack profile?
Right. It means that the Javelin missile is designed to fly up and over a tank
Okay.
and then strike the top armor, which is usually much weaker
Makes sense.
than the heavily armored front.
Yeah.
It's a clever way to bypass a tank's strongest defenses.
So Russia tried the physical countermeasures. What about electronic warfare? Have they tried to jam the Javelin's guidance system?
That's a really good question, and it brings up one of the Javelin's biggest advantages.
Okay.
Unlike some systems that rely on radio signals or GPS, the Javelin uses an infrared guidance system. It locks onto the heat signature of its target, so it's much harder to jam electronically.
So this is what they call a fire and forget weapon.
Right.
The soldier locks onto the target, fires the missile,
And that's it.
and then they can get out of there.
Yeah. They don't have to keep aiming. The
Yeah.
missile does the rest.
Yeah. It's a nightmare for a slower, less agile enemy.
It really is.
Yeah. Okay. So it's clear that the Javelin is a game changer. How has this impacted training and tactics on the Ukrainian side?
Well, Ukraine has definitely recognized the importance of training soldiers to use this effectively.
Yeah.
They've set up these specialized training centers with simulators and even spent Javelin tubes
Wow.
from the battlefield, so the soldiers get the most realistic experience.
That's really interesting. What are some of the things that they're focusing on in these training programs?
Well, besides the basics of operating the system, they're really emphasizing tactical considerations,
Yeah.
like choosing the right target,
Yeah.
picking the best firing position, the importance of camouflage and concealment, all that stuff.
And how are the Ukrainian soldiers responding to all this? Are they confident using the Javelin?
They are. From the reports we've seen, it seems like the Javelin has become a favorite.
Huh.
They praise its ease of use, its effectiveness, and the confidence it gives them in combat.
Yeah.
One soldier even described the Javelin sight system as amazing and designed for people.
High praise. That's pretty cool. But the impact of this goes beyond Ukraine, right? It's been used in other conflicts as well.
Oh, yeah. The Javelin has seen action in a number of previous conflicts, and it's been consistently impressive.
Like where?
Well, it was used during the Iraq War against Iraqi tanks.
Okay.
It was also used in Afghanistan, where it was effective against all kinds of targets. Vehicles, caves, fortified positions, even individuals.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. So this is a pretty versatile weapon.
it is.
Any other deployments worth mentioning?
Yeah, during the Syrian civil war, a Javelin was actually used to destroy an ISIS car bomb,
Oh, wow.
potentially saving the lives of American infantry.
That's incredible. So
Yeah.
this thing has really proven itself time and time again.
It has.
But, some people might say, is it all worth it? Is the cost of these weapons justified by their impact?
It's a good question. But if we look at the evidence from Ukraine, it's hard to argue that the Javelin hasn't had a significant impact.
Yeah.
I mean, it's played a key role in slowing down the Russian advance, giving Ukraine valuable time to organize its defenses and mount counterattacks.
And as we said before, the cost of a single Javelin missile
Right.
is dwarfed by the value of the targets it can destroy.
Exactly. It's not just about the money.
Yeah.
It's about strategic advantage, disrupting the enemy's plans, and potentially saving lives on both sides.
Absolutely. And I think the Javelin's impact extends beyond the immediate battlefield too, right?
I go.
It sends a clear message to
Yeah.
Russia and everyone else about the capabilities of modern anti-tank weapons
For sure.
and the determination of those who are supporting Ukraine.
Absolutely. So we've covered the Javelin's origins, its features, its impact on the ground in Ukraine, other conflicts.
But what does the future hold for this weapon system?
That's the question.
Yeah.
We'll explore a little bit further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But I can say this, the Javelin has proven itself in Ukraine, and its success is likely to have far-reaching implications for the future of warfare. It's forcing militaries around the world to rethink their strategies and defenses in the face of these increasingly sophisticated weapons.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
I can't wait to dig deeper into those implications.
Yeah.
But for now, I think we've given our listener plenty to think about. We'll be back soon to explore the future of the Javelin and what its success might mean for the global balance of power.
Sounds good. Before we jumped into all the nitty-gritty of the Javelin itself, we were talking about how it's been used in other conflicts around the world
Yeah.
and just how effective it's been. But I think it's time to kind of shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and think about what this all means for the future of warfare.
So we've seen that it's a real game changer in Ukraine.
Yeah.
But what are the implications for future wars? I mean, is this kind of a glimpse into a whole new era of warfare?
I think it very well could be. The Javelin's success in Ukraine has really exposed a vulnerability in modern militaries that are still relying so heavily on these traditional armored vehicles.
Right.
It's portable, it's accurate, it's difficult to defend against.
Yeah.
It's a serious threat, even to the most sophisticated tanks.
So this is about more than just Ukraine then?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This has global implications.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Potential conflict zones all over the world.
Yeah.
The Middle East Africa, the Taiwan Strait.
The fact that it's been so effective in Ukraine.
Could really encourage other countries that are facing similar threats
Right.
to invest in these kinds of weapons.
It's almost like a domino effect in a way.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like countries that might have previously felt vulnerable to attacks by armored forces.
Uh-huh.
Now they have a proven solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that could force these larger militaries to rethink their whole approach to warfare.
So what might those new strategies look like?
Well, for one thing, we might see a shift away from relying solely on heavy armor.
Okay.
Militaries could start prioritizing these smaller, more mobile units
Mhm.
that are harder to target with weapons like the Javelin. Think about it. Spreading out your forces, making them more agile, more adaptable.
So instead of these massive armored columns that we saw in the early days of the invasion,
Exactly.
we might see smaller, more dispersed units operating more independently.
Exactly. It's much harder to defend against a threat that's constantly moving, changing positions, striking from unexpected directions.
Makes a lot of sense. And I imagine we're also going to see a lot more investment in these active protection systems.
So absolutely.
For tanks, these are systems designed to actually detect and intercept incoming missiles.
Right. So like a defensive shield for tanks.
Yeah.
But of course they have limitations. I mean, the Javelin, as we've been talking about,
Yeah.
is designed to strike from above,
Right.
targeting that weakest point of the armor.
So no system is foolproof.
Right. And the Javelin, with its top attack capability, is particularly challenging to defend against.
That brings up another interesting point. Technology is constantly evolving. Can the Javelin keep up? I mean, can it keep pace with these advancements and countermeasures?
That's the challenge. But Lockheed Martin, the company that makes the Javelin,
Yeah.
they know this.
Yeah.
They're constantly working on upgrades and improvements to the system.
So what kinds of upgrades are we talking about?
Well, there's talk of enhancing the Javelin's range, improving the guidance systems. Some experts are even suggesting the possibility of incorporating artificial intelligence
Wow.
to make it even more effective at acquiring and tracking targets.
So this is getting into some really high-tech territory now.
It is. It might sound futuristic,
Yeah.
but these advancements are being explored, and it really underscores the importance of staying ahead of the game
Right.
when it comes to military technology.
Yeah.
I mean, the stakes are incredibly high.
Absolutely. All this advanced technology does come with a price tag, though.
Yeah.
How does the cost of the Javelin compare to some of the other weapon systems being used in Ukraine? Like these relatively cheap drones we keep hearing about.
Right. Well, it's true that those drones can be assembled pretty cheaply,
Yeah.
and they have been surprisingly effective in certain situations,
Uh-huh.
but they do have their limitations.
Like what?
The Javelin's infrared guidance system makes it much more resistant to electronic jamming.
Okay. So that's a problem for the drones.
It can be a big problem.
Yeah. So essentially it's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Lower cost versus reliability.
Yeah.
And the ability to operate in these environments with electronic warfare.
Right. You need the right tool for the right situation.
Yeah.
But all of this brings us to a really crucial point.
Okay.
The human element.
Yeah.
We can talk all day about technology, but at the end of the day, it's the soldiers operating these weapons that are just as important.
Absolutely. The Javelin, or any weapon for that matter,
Right.
is only as good as the person using it.
Exactly. And the Javelin's success in Ukraine
Yeah.
is a testament not just to its capabilities,
Right.
but to the skill and courage and ingenuity of the Ukrainian soldiers.
We've heard stories of Ukrainian troops adapting their tactics on the fly,
Well, yeah.
using the Javelin in creative ways to achieve their objectives.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
They're not just following a manual, they're thinking for themselves.
Yeah.
They're finding ways to maximize the Javelin's effectiveness in the field.
That kind of adaptability is essential in modern warfare.
It's crucial. You can't just rely on technology. You need soldiers who can think critically, solve problems, adapt to changing circumstances.
It's a good reminder that warfare at its core is still about human beings,
Yeah.
making decisions under incredibly difficult circumstances. This makes me think about training and knowledge sharing. How is the experience that's being gained in Ukraine, how is that going to impact military training and tactics in other parts of the world?
It's already happening. Military analysts and experts are studying the conflict in Ukraine very closely.
Yeah.
They're trying to extract these valuable lessons about modern warfare.
Makes sense.
And the Javelin's impact is definitely a major focus.
So the ripple effects continue. The things that are being learned in Ukraine are shaping the thinking of military leaders and strategists all over the world.
Exactly. And that's going to have a profound impact on how future conflicts are fought.
Yeah.
We're seeing a real shift in thinking about the role of technology, the importance of adaptability, the need to empower soldiers to make decisions on the ground.
It's fascinating and complex.
It is.
And I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But I think it's clear that the Javelin success in Ukraine has raised some really important questions about the future of warfare.
It has.
Yeah.
And as we move forward, it's crucial that we continue to study these lessons,
Yeah.
adapt our thinking, prepare for the challenges of a rapidly changing world.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
We have.
You know, from a potential for a new era of warfare to the evolving role of technology,
Right.
to the importance of the human element.
It's a lot to think about.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. We encourage you to keep exploring these issues. And as always, share your thoughts and perspectives. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for being with us. Would you like to hear more of these live broadcasts? Write your thoughts in the comments. Next up, a collection of videos you watch the most. If you'd like to hear a podcast on any of these topics, just let us know in the comments. See you.
In the first months of the invasion, Russian aviation outnumbered Ukraine's by 5-1. But soon, more and more videos began to show damaged Russian Su-25s barely making it back to their airfields. Wondering who helped them with it? Well, that happens when a 1,400 American Stinger manpads hits the battlefield. Of course, using weapons from the 80s comes with its own quirks, and who better to explain that than the Ukrainian soldiers who have personally felt the burden of the Stinger on their shoulders. There wasn't even a chance for them, the Russians, to escape, shares a soldier with the call sign SVAT, reflecting on the weapon's impact. The war in Ukraine is currently the hottest conflict zone in the world, where American weaponry is undoubtedly useful. So, to help Ukrainians take down even more enemy pilots, the United States provided them with 3 different Stinger modifications. The first is the manpads version. The second is the FIM-92 Stinger DMS. And the third is the Avenger SAM system. All of them are now active on the battlefield. Here's what the soldiers have to say after putting them to use. It's a very effective piece of gear. If we'd had it back in 2014, the skies would have been a lot clearer than they are now, says Soldier Alexander, speaking about the FIM-92 Stinger manpads. And this senior soldier with the call sign Lawrence shot down a Su-25 on the first try. It was my first experience, my first launch. Hit that like button if you want to see more spot-on shots like these for Ukraine. After all, it takes 5 weeks of training and practice on a laser simulator to learn how to operate a FIM-92 Stinger. At the start of the war, Ukrainians didn't have that kind of time. So what was their workaround? I'd never even handled one, a Stinger, before. No shooting experience whatsoever. While we were on our way and still had internet, we downloaded a video where a US Marine explains what's what. Wow. So a Ukrainian soldier learned to operate a manpads from a YouTube video? Wouldn't be surprised if he finds instructions online to build a Tomahawk missile in his garage and launch it at Moscow. But seriously, his story sounds like an incredible stroke of luck, considering it can take up to 15 shots to hit a single target. As for that unlucky Russian Su-30 in fall 2022 in Kharkiv, it strayed off course and ended up right in the sights of a MANPADS. The result? Well, you can see it in the video. Alright, we're convinced that an encounter with a Stinger can mark a Russian aircraft's last moments in the sky. But what about helicopters? Can it handle those too? The Ka-52 helicopter is equipped with flares to protect it from MANPADS, but they couldn't save it from a FIM-92 Stinger strike. The Ka-52 isn't the only one lucky enough to experience American weaponry firsthand. The former commander of the Azov Regiment released footage of a Stinger missile hitting a Mi-35M in Zaporizhzhia. Here's how the soldier Svat describes his shot at a helicopter with a Stinger. 2 helicopters were coming in. They intercepted the first shot as a decoy, but the second one hit the helicopter directly. Russians didn't even have a chance to escape. The helicopter just broke apart as it hit the ground. No one survived. The adrenaline was through the roof after that. As you can see, the MANPADS fulfilled their main mission. The crews of Russian airplanes and helicopters will now think twice about flying on a combat mission. But in modern warfare, there are many other threats. For example, missiles and UAVs. Is the American Stinger effective against them? Let's try to find out. On the night of August 30th, 2023, the Russians launched 20 cruise missiles of various types at Kyiv. One of them was a Kh-101 air-to-ground missile. It was shot down by a fighter of the Mobile Air Defense Unit Alexander. I'm convinced now that a Stinger can even take down a missile, proven in the field. Our enemy tries to launch missiles and Shaheeds at night, so we attach a night vision device to the Stinger to spot the targets. It might seem like just luck, but another Ukrainian soldier managed to outdo his comrade's success. This guy shot down 2 cruise missiles back-to-back in northern Ukraine. I heard the missiles coming, and 2 minutes later, I spotted one visually, threw the Stinger on my shoulder, and fired. I heard it hit. Then they brought me a second Stinger. I waited for the second missile, heard it launch, and, well, I took it down too, he recounts. The Russians have upgraded their missiles to make interception harder, equipping the Kh-101 with flares. But despite that, Ukrainians are keeping up the fight. A cruise missile was flying at about 1,000 feet. The speed of our Stinger launcher allowed us to catch up and neutralize it. This Ukrainian air defender is on duty 24/7 with his FIM-92 Stinger DMS mounted on a Humvee. He's quite impressed with the system's performance. We're taking down everything. Thanks to the solid work of this crew, we're hitting our targets on time. And here's how an American AN/TWQ-1 Avenger SAM system, courtesy of the US, takes down a cruise missile. Didn't stand a chance. But there's still another aerial threat. Russian UAVs. How will the Stinger handle them? During another attack on the Kyiv region, Ukrainian air defense operator Alexander shot down a Russian Shahed 136 UAV with a single Stinger shot. Meanwhile, Marines from the 38th Brigade destroyed 7 enemy strike drones in just one night. Impressive. So how was the FIM-92 Stinger proven so effective in modern warfare? The key lies in its cost effectiveness. Its price tag is far lower than the targets it takes out. Let's look at how this plays out with a Ukrainian crew in action. Air Defender Alexander has destroyed 12 aerial targets, marked by painted tridents on his Humvee. His tally includes 2 Su-25s, 2 Ka-52s, 2 Shahed 136 UAVs, and 5 Orlan 10 UAVs, a combined worth of approximately $57.7 million. Typically, taking down one target might require up to 15 missiles. Assuming the maximum of 15 missiles per target, that's around $27 million in costs, still only half the value of the Russian equipment taken down. With 1,400 FIM-92 Stinger MANPADS now on the battlefield, Ukraine's air defenses have been significantly strengthened, proving their edge over Russian weaponry. It's chilling to imagine what could have happened if these systems hadn't been delivered on time. Ukrainians couldn't have sourced a comparable number of Soviet-era Igla MANPADS, and even if they had, would they be as effective in modern warfare? The question is rhetorical. Of course, reliable, high-quality weaponry is just half the battle. Knowledge and training are crucial too. So, where did Ukrainian soldiers get such precise stinger skills? Resources are limited, and every shot counts. To avoid wasting live stingers on training ranges, the Ukrainian company Skiftech developed a portable laser simulator. With it, soldiers can practice 1,000 shots if needed, then hit real targets in combat with confidence. The device can be used on ranges in various weather conditions. For example, this soldier, along with his commander and a comrade, is practicing shooting down a drone in open, windy terrain. While one soldier pilots a DJI Mavic, another identifies the target and fires with a simulated shot. Ready for combat. Target search. Target in sight. Azimuth 230. Target is isolated. Destroy it. Target locked. Fire. After the shot, a notification sounds from the simulator's speaker, confirming the target hit. This lets the instructor begin analyzing the results on a tablet. Here's what he says. We have the results. Battery detached on time, meaning it was removed within 5 seconds. And for the shooting results, target hit. The simulator replicates the full weight of a combat-ready Stinger. It includes every part of the Stinger: a cooling unit that heats up, guidance systems, a safety, sights, and all other components. The instructor can also increase training difficulty by enabling a heat flare simulator within the app. This device allows soldiers to train against real aircraft, helicopters, and drones. For instance, in this video, a GUR-MO soldier is practicing with the training system against a simulated enemy on a UH-60A Black Hawk helicopter. This tool helps drill the maneuvers to muscle memory, actions that would be prohibitively expensive with a real Stinger. Essentially, we can fire as many times as we want, shares a representative from Skiftech. Ukrainians have found a creative way to conserve their resources, especially since they don't have the industrial capacity of the US. But the question remains, can America truly equip itself for the wars of the future? As experience has shown, the war in Ukraine is the largest armed conflict of our time, where Russia deploys every weapon type except nuclear. The fighting is so intense that manpads are practically considered expendable. Ukrainians are shooting down dozens of targets daily. Their experience has made one thing clear. It's not just Ukraine or even NATO allies who might face a shortage of Stinger missiles. Believe it or not, the United States hasn't built a new Stinger missile since 2005. The terrorists US forces fought didn't have jets, helicopters, or large numbers of drones. To replace the 1,400 missiles sent to Ukraine, the Pentagon signed a $624.6 million contract to produce new Stinger missiles in Tucson. Without the Ukrainian aid packages, the Stinger production line might have stayed dormant until a conflict around Taiwan sparked it back to life. According to the Pentagon, it will take about 2.5 years to get the first units off the production line. Why so long? Several components for these manpads are no longer in production, meaning new ways to restart and expand manufacturing are needed. It was only during the fighting in Ukraine that the US recognized and began addressing this issue. One temporary solution to replenish US stocks has been refurbishing out-of-service missiles. Thanks to this, 1,900 missiles have been returned to Army warehouses for training and combat. This approach not only saved the US $50,000 per missile, but also allowed for increased support to allies. In the Russia-Ukraine war, the Stinger hasn't just gotten a second life. It's proven the effectiveness of manpads as a weapon class, even in extreme conditions. Could you imagine, in any other conflict, fighters with a Stinger on a boat shooting down a Russian Su-30 SM jet? In Ukraine, this became possible thanks to Western weaponry and the expertise of the main Directorate of Intelligence's operatives. The Pentagon has closely examined these lessons and drawn conclusions that US adversaries won't like. The government has contracted the production of new Stinger missiles and the development of a modern replacement. In doing so, the US will bolster its own security and assist allies waiting for this weaponry to strengthen their defenses. Which American weapon would you like to hear about in our next videos? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't you agree that from the first shots, it's clear that something is wrong? You can feel the tension growing. Steven Spielberg would probably include this scene in their famous war dramas if it wouldn't be that ridiculous. Cause really, who doesn't know that you can't just throw ammunition off a truck onto a pile of other ammunition like they're stones? And this guy has even forgotten that the Tommy gun is given to the soldier at war to shoot from it, but not to hurl it. Oh, what's this? A grenade launcher? Oh, no, don't. Well, you understand what happened, so we won't show the following events. When a person finds himself in a war, he's immediately warned that any object can be explosive and that he should not poke anything with a stick. But this Russian soldier had to learn his lesson the hard way. However, a simple stick can be useful in the skillful hands, right? For example, for quick demining. Why shoot? Why waste ammunition when you can just hit it with a stick? The consequences are much worse when a commander makes a mistake. For example, when he orders his men to gather in a pile in the middle of an open field. Perhaps he wants to instruct them that this is not how to act in a war. But his own experience came before the instructions. I think you understand what's going to happen in a second, but we won't show it because of YouTube's policies. Such commanders need to train themselves. For example, on mannequins. If you're frightened by this footage, then you may have automatonophobia, the fear of human-like figures such as mannequins, wax figures, statues, dummies, animatronics, or robots. Why did the Russians bring dummies to the positions, you may ask? They dressed them in military uniforms to fake the concentration of their units and force Ukrainians to waste ammunition on killing the dummies. But the Russian commander's Dido was another epic fail. And here, the commander had no dummies, so he ordered his soldiers to retake the village in Donbass. But something went wrong. A Russian convoy of 3 tanks and 3 BMP, packed with infantry, set off to assault right through a minefield. What were these soldiers hoping for? Or maybe they were just unaware of the danger because their commander had not warned them about the mines. After the first explosions, the members of the column opened fire on each other. The god of war just laughed. They say you will be banned from attacking your teammate in Counter-Strike. We do not know what happened next in this particular story, but according to various studies, up to 20% of war casualties are caused by friendly fire. And shockingly, this statistic has hardly changed over the past 200 years. Epic fails sometimes save lives. This is exactly what happened to this strike fighter. Typically, Su-25 pilots operate at low altitudes and are able to see not only their and others' positions, but also any dangers that may arise. But this Russian pilot put a pin in all possible safety rules and almost paid for it. However, he was lucky. He flew through a cloud of Russian MLRS missiles and remained unharmed. He could have been the first pilot to be shot down by an MLRS. Put a thumbs up if you want to have the same luck as this fighter pilot. Some people believe that war is a hunt. These Russian helicopter pilots were probably hunting for Ukrainian Leopard 2 tanks, but what they got in their way were weed harvesters. After a short battle between a heavily armored helicopter and a lone combine, the Russian pilots reported to their commanders that the Leopard tank had been destroyed. Their superiors also watched the video and agreed, yes, it was destroyed. Here are your military decorations, gentlemen officers. The military decorations were also offered to Russian soldiers who seized the Chernobyl power plant in 2022. Yes, many years have passed since the nuclear disaster, but only a foolish commander can send stormtroopers here. And only a complete idiot would order them to dig trenches in the Red Forest. After all, there is hazardous radioactive soil under a small ground layer. Therefore, the Russian military left the territory of the station, but the station will forever remain in their bodies. But in this story, no one received orders. The commander of this infantry fighting vehicle was given an old map. You can probably guess what happened. Yes, the crew got stupidly lost in foreign territory. They found themselves in the rear of Ukrainian troops. Naturally, the Russian BMP was hit near the first gas station. The crew had to abandon their BMP and to get out on foot. Sometimes, epic fails in war concern not only combat soldiers, but also dry rations. And everything would have been fine, but the Russians were a little overdue. Well, a little bit, only by some 7 years. How do you think it is a good idea to remove a cannon from a BMP and attach it to an off-road vehicle to be used as field artillery. Looks like this. True, the range of this 30mm cannon is not very long, up to 2.5 miles. However, it is not possible to aim with it. After all, the sight and the rangefinder were left in the BMP. The only way to do it is to hit them by tip-off, on their own. And what happens if you install a grill on a tank? This is what they call grates in this war, which are supposed to protect from direct hits from kamikaze drones or mines dropped by drones. It's worth plus 10 points for its bizarre appearance and minus 50 points for its effectiveness. And here we gathered a whole collection for you, because these works of art deserve special attention. There are absolutely unique models. The tankers believe that a lighted flashlight on a pipe welded to the tank is supposed to deflect infrared guided missiles. And this is the best and most modern Russian IFV BMP-3. Ukrainians even additionally protected their grills from moisture, apparently to prevent rusting. This model was given the title of the Barbecue Czar. At one point, it became the main star on the front line. The only problem is that this tank can only fire in one direction, and the fire sector is very limited because this construction prevents the turret from rotating. However, such protection rarely saves vehicles. For an artillery shell or a PTUR missile, this shielding is like a spider's web. A kamikaze drone will always find a loophole. This is especially true when the drone operator is a pro. This Ukrainian may have played in the NBA in the past. Barbecues are helpless against mines, and also, in a critical situation, they prevent the crew from leaving the vehicle. However, the Russian-Ukrainian war did not give rise to this entertainment. The Israeli army also used this kind of defense at one time. It's just that the Israelis have, let's call it, an Oriental style. The Syrians have also succeeded in the barbecue business. However, namely, the war in Ukraine can be called a barbecue fashion week. And this tank decided to stand out and defended itself with sandbags, but they didn't help either. It's impossible to guess why. Perhaps it's about aesthetic pleasure. Banzai! These are Russian assault motorcycles. But you can't weld a grill to an airplane, so they attached this. If you have a name for this masterpiece, share it with us in the comments. Between welding ridiculous parts to their vehicles, the Russians are engaged in another epic fail. They're dragging the most important thing to their unit, a washing machine. Well, you can't stay dirty in the trench, right? But not everyone goes to war for the sake of looting. The commander of this Russian BMP probably came to Ukraine not for orders, nor for washing machines, but for adrenaline. So when the danger passed him by, he decided to return. It seems he had too much adrenaline. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left but metal debris. And some go to war to sleep. This is a video of the capture of Russian positions. The guy was sleeping peacefully when his colleagues escaped. The Ukrainians came in quietly and woke the Russian soldier up at the last moment. Most likely, this saved his life. But it's still not worth sleeping on the battlefield. Otherwise, a predatory bird might come, and it won't wait for you to wake up. You know, there is no shortage of fools in war. Apparently, the driver of this Russian tank is a taxi driver in civilian life. He isn't used to giving a free ride to passengers, so he just dumped the unwanted customers. They'll have to catch another taxi. And this is not easy. For some reason, Russian soldiers do not want to give rides to their colleagues. We don't know if they managed to get their own. They'll probably remember this experience forever. And here, Russian missiles find their way home on their own. Yep, you heard it right. They return to their owners right after launch. Or maybe it was just a lazy missile. Here's another sluggish missile, launched from the Russian frigate Marshal Shaposhnikov. She just wasn't in the mood to work and decided to take a bath right in the sea. Actually, I can relate. Sometimes, the funny things with military hardware begin even before it reaches the front, and then civilians have a hard time. I wonder if the world already has a road sign that says, "Beware of tanks." Would you like to see the second part of Epic War Fails? Let us know in the comments. Did you ever think that military positions would be tracked through Apple products? Even Steve Jobs couldn't have predicted this twist. Take this story. A Ukrainian man, determined to track his stolen AirPods, discovered something far more valuable: a Russian platoon's movements. With a little help from Apple's Find My feature, he traced the Russian soldiers and reported their movements to Ukrainian forces. And this is just the start of the dumbest Russian forces compilation. We'll dive into the hilarious blunders, mishaps, and facepalm moments of the Russian army during the Ukraine war. In a special twist on drone tech, a Ukrainian team managed to capture a Russian drone, only to find a Canon DSLR camera strapped inside. That's right, a high-tech war drone equipped with everyone's favorite tourist gadget. I guess someone missed the memo on military-grade technology. And here, the driver of a Russian armored vehicle cluelessly plowed into a row of clearly visible landmines and promptly blew himself up. If you found this as mind-blowing as we did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable moments from the front lines. But if you think that's bad, wait until you hear what they've been doing with HIMARS. The Russian military claims it has annihilated more HIMARS systems than the US has even sent. How? Simple. They were just wooden decoys built by Ukrainian troops, and Russia, not knowing the difference, has been firing millions of dollars of missiles at these fake HIMARS like they're playing a high-stakes carnival game. But hey, who knew that plywood could be such a strategic asset? It's not just about HIMARS. Lieutenant Commander Alexander Afanasyev and his team in Donetsk created a Fank tank using wood and empty shell boxes to trick Russian drones. When a Lancet drone costing $35,000 obliterated the decoy, Russian media proudly showcased the footage celebrating a tank kill. Ukrainians later revealed it was just a pile of charred wood. Talk about expensive firewood. What could be dumber than giving away your position to the enemy? That's exactly what Russian forces did when they spotted a Ukrainian flag floating on balloons. They opened fire on it, revealing their location to Ukrainian forces, who promptly launched a successful strike. A flag on balloons caused chaos. In one of the war's most ironic moments, a pro-Russian journalist posted photos of a Wagner Group base in Popasna on social media. Ukrainian forces analyzed the pictures, identified the location, and obliterated the base. Forget encrypted communication. It seems selfies are Russia's worst enemy. After the selfie blunder, Ukraine pulled another stunt, this time in Crimea. Ukrainian hackers hijacked Russian TV channels and broadcasted Zelensky's speech to the people of Crimea. It wasn't just a broadcast, though. Channel names were swapped with a clever insult aimed at Putin. Who knew that tech and a little humor could hit Russia where it hurts? Let's talk about Russia's unfortunate self-targeting missiles, Russia's U-turn rockets. Now, we all know that old machinery has a few quirks, but when a Russian rocket decided to make a U-turn mid-flight and head straight back to its own launcher, even the engineers were scratching their heads. It's like the rocket said, actually, on second thought, let's not. Boom, right back at ya. And if that's not enough, Russia has also been a bit off-target closer to home. Believe it or not, in just 1 year, Russia managed to drop glide bombs on their own territory nearly 40 times. That's right, they bombed themselves almost as often as they bombed Ukraine, and with no enemy in sight. At this rate, they might just win the self-sabotage award. But this story of friendly fire is not restricted to glide bombs only. On the 28th of September, a group of Russian soldiers who surrendered to Ukrainian forces in the Donbas region after a failed assault came under fire from their own troops. A similar incident happened in the month of August. A drunk Russian helicopter pilot opened fire on a convoy. As it turned out, the convoy wasn't Ukrainian at all, and 2 Russian Mista-S self-propelled artillery systems. But at least one Russian soldier managed to pull off something heroic, kind of. In a plot twist worthy of a comedy sketch, Russia awarded a medal to a pilot who crashed into an American drone. Talk about honoring incompetence. He couldn't avoid a drone, but hey, here's a medal for effort. And the Russian army's blunders aren't just limited to weapons and soldiers. Some things never change, like the Russians' love for landing helicopters on an airfield that gets shelled every single time. They've gone back 15 times to the same airport near Kherson with fresh equipment just to be blown up in the same spot. Imagine sending expensive gear to the same doomed field again and again, like an endless reel of Groundhog Day. Now for a bit of Russian ingenuity. Or lack thereof. Here are some of the funniest and dumbest examples of Russian soldiers acting as looters during the invasion of Ukraine. A Russian zookeeper, Oleg Zubkov, made headlines for stealing animals from the Kherson Zoo. Among the loot was a raccoon, which became an internet sensation and meme. This furry looting spree was so absurd that the raccoon even got its own propaganda spot. A soldier was photographed loading a tank with children's sheets featuring Disney characters, a blanket, and a heating tank. This bizarre theft was so specific that it could only be described as a wartime home decor mission gone wrong. One of the most ridiculous acts of looting occurred when Russian soldiers took a toilet bowl from a Ukrainian house during their retreat. Things get more interesting when 2 soldiers are caught stealing the washing machine. This is the kind of item you don't expect to see on any battlefield loot list, yet it somehow made its way to the soldiers' spoils. In a classic movie villain move, Russian soldiers were caught on video dragging a safe from a Ukrainian bank. Imagine the weight of that thing. Maybe they planned to crack it open later, hoping for riches, or just finding a pile of paperwork. And speaking of things Russians probably didn't want you to know, picture this. Russian TV announces the arrival time and location of a military supply ship in Berdyansk. Ukrainian forces tune in, take notes, and blow it up right on schedule. Remember kids, loose lips sink ships, especially when you tell the whole world where they're docked. And earlier in the invasion, Russia decided to wipe out Ukraine's 4G network, only to realize, too late, that their own encrypted communications ran on, you guessed it, 4G. Sometimes you're your own worst enemy. In a similar vein, Russia's missteps aren't limited to tech. They often find themselves tangled in their own absurdities. Russian troops digging trenches in Chernobyl? That's like playing in radioactive dirt. They didn't just fight Ukraine, they fought leftover radiation from 1986. Some soldiers reportedly got sick, proving they didn't just miss history class, but basic common sense too. A clip of a Russian soldier practicing his combat skills, not with a rifle or a high-tech gadget, but with a shovel. His swings were clumsy, his face a mask of frustration, as he attempted to master this handheld air defense system. Why such an odd training exercise? What could possibly require these medieval tactics? And if you think that's strange, just wait. Russia's approach to combat seems to get even more baffling. The answer comes in another clip, where Ukrainian FPV drones turn the battlefield into a showcase of precision and absurdity. An FPV drone from Ukraine's 82nd Airborne Brigade locks onto a Russian soldier. His weapon? That same shovel, sarcastically dubbed the latest anti-drone innovation. The drone dives, the soldier raises his shovel, defiant but outmatched. In a matter of seconds, modern precision triumphs over outdated improvisation. All the practice in the world couldn't prepare for a fight where tech wins every time. Here, some clever minds with shovels came out against FPVs. Have they been reading too much Sun Tzu or what? They might have brushed up on some ancient military strategy, but it's safe to say this doesn't quite line up with the art of war. Here we have another Russian soldier in the field trying to poke a drone with a stick. Yes, a stick. The whole thing is a comedy of errors with a side of ridiculousness. And if that wasn't absurd enough, the scene takes an even stranger turn. Russian soldiers are prepping for battle, not with weapons or training, but with vodka shots and traditional dances. Before heading to the front lines, mobilized troops are getting their combat spirit lifted by downing alcohol and busting out round dances like it's a local folk festival rather than a military operation. It's the kind of motivation you'd expect at a drunken wedding, not a war zone. The result? An army that's more ready for a karaoke competition than a fight, proving once again that in Russia, even war has a wild party vibe. And it doesn't stop there. After their vodka shots and folk dance warm-ups, Russian soldiers are now sleeping under the stars like it's a budget camping trip. Forget military-grade tents, these mobilized troops are getting their beauty sleep in the great outdoors, proving that sleeping under the sky is the latest luxury in military accommodations. It's like a summer festival, but with less music and more existential dread. Life truly is the best comedy, especially when your barracks are nature's finest. Just when you think it can't get any stranger, Azov fighters pull off a surprising move, using Snickers bars to trick and capture 3 Russian soldiers. Disguised as Russian spies, they offered the candy to build trust, turning a simple treat into a tactical weapon. While chatting, one Azov fighter casually revealed he was actually Ukrainian and invited the Russians to surrender. The soldiers, caught off guard and likely still chewing their chocolate, agreed without putting up a fight. Turns out that sometimes a simple snack can be all it takes to turn the tide of a confrontation. Last but not least, here the soldiers of the 63rd Mechanized Brigade stumbled upon Russian troops in the forest, using their knees and elbows to turn quad bikes into little hiding spots, hoping to confuse Ukrainian drones. It's like they thought the drones wouldn't notice a quad bike trying to play hide and seek. Well, since these were the invaders, the game ended with a destroyed tag. So with all these strange and desperate tactics, what's the dumbest moment you've seen from the Russian army? Share your thoughts in the comments.